Hi there, my name is Marcel, and I'm currently in the Philippines on an island, and I've been traveling through Asia for the last 2 years offering my Tantra work as a practitioner. And it's been a very interesting journey for me because it's allowed me to experience the social conditioning of other cultures and personality types from other parts of the world. I've also worked in Berlin. I've worked in many different places, and this is one of my passions, is experiencing diversity and just social conditioning, especially around sexuality. So for instance, Europeans are generally a lot more open-minded than South Africans in their approach, and especially when it comes to social environment of exploring and being comfortable with sexuality. So I am returning back to South Africa at the end of November, and I decided to create this video so that you can get a sense of who I am and what I look like. So for me personally, when I decide on who to work with, I like to be able to see a person and hear them and get a sense of how they might be. So just to give you a little bit of backstory about me and how I got onto this path, I experienced a lot of trauma growing up as a child and experienced abandonment very early. I was also abused as a child sexually, and so there were an immense amount of wounds that I was carrying. There was a lot of disconnection from my body, and I was generally quite tormented just being inside my being. And so there was no choice but to find a way out, and that became a really important path for me, was to take myself from the place of struggle and feeling like a victim to, as I like to say, living in the light and living in a more peaceful place where I feel free. And so that's kind of how it started. And about 15 years ago, I met my teacher, who introduced me to the fundamentals of Tantra, which, by the way, is not about sexuality per se, but more about a journey of deconditioning. And most people think, oh, I had an awakening, but for me it was more this deconditioning process of peeling away all these layers and bit by bit really getting to meet more of what was underneath within my shadow. Among other things, there's so many layers and aspects to taking this path and working with Tantra as well as Taoism. So yeah, that's my story. I've been on this relentlessly for about 15 years now, and I can say that eventually what starts happening is you're no longer triggered by things that you used to be triggered by, and there's more joy available within your being to meet life. And the actual sexual experiences themselves take on a whole new level of intimacy, which is a beautiful aspect of following this path, and for which I feel many people come to see me for. It is about the sexuality. And so let's address this subject and just say that I work with people that have experienced sexual trauma, men and women. And I also work with people that want to learn more about Tantra with their partners and how to expand their sexuality. And then I work with people who have been on a path for some time and are relentless like myself and want to keep pushing through, breaking through, who are more serious about the path. We call them seekers. So there's a place for everybody that I work with, and I feel that one of my gifts is my ability to hold a very deep and tender and nurturing space for people to really drop into places of vulnerability. And I always like to say that there's nothing more powerful than the power of being seen for that which is so private and sacred for you, and to allow it to be seen in a way where it's really held and allowed a voice, as opposed to having to hide it or feel shame about it. And so I welcome all the emotions. I work with a full spectrum of emotions, so all the way from the shadow into the light. I think as a result of having gone so deep into the shadow myself, And so yeah, that's ultimately what this work entails. We just keep unpacking and digging, and I work best if you have a sense of what it is that you want to work with and are willing to commit to the journey. Generally, one session is not enough. Just because I'm teaching you, your body, to realize that you're not your mind, that you're your body, and that it's time to start connecting to that body. It's time to start connecting to a deeper level of intimacy with yourself. And as that intimacy with yourself starts happening, things start switching on, energy starts moving again, old wounds come up, and it's almost like the wheel starts turning again, you know, the wheel of who you are. Because sadly, in this day and age, most men and women have been conditioned around the concept of sexuality through pornography. They have a distorted sense, for instance, of what a woman's orgasm looks like or a woman's sexuality looks like. Or for women, they think that they have to be the porn star. These are sort of typical scenarios for most men and women, and so it's really just re-educating and showing people a deeper, more profound way that for women allows them to connect to their power, and for men to connect not only to their masculinity but to that feminine aspect within themselves as well. So I always say that Tantra for me is not about sexuality, it's just an aspect of it, but I do feel that for most of us it's the most important thing, because it's such a beautiful and pleasurable thing, and who doesn't want to experience the full experience of it. And so yes, we do work with the sexual energy, we connect to the body again, and then in that space I hold you so that whatever wounds are there can come to the surface and release. And it's a very beautiful journey, and I invite you to connect and feel free to ask any questions if you have any. So I think that about wraps it up. I promised myself I would keep it under 20 minutes. So if you're still here watching, bye for now.